Story continued from Thaddeus and Tarquinus playlist. Revelation. Another set of jumps, another gauntlet run. We jump a half-dozen times, bouncing into system after system. Like beggars, we run from any occupied doors. Finally, we come out of the warp into a Mandeville point that by all rights should be closed down. For there is nothing here. There was at one point, until very recently, but now it is all gone. Now, when most people say this, they mean that what exists is just not useful to them at that time, or uninteresting, or even just subpar. It's not of note or worthy of being called exciting. I am more specific with my language, and most definitely with my descriptions, more than any other calling or vocation in the universe. It is by the detail that Inquisitors live or die. And when I say there is nothing here, I really mean it. Because someone or something came quite recently and turned off the lights. Petrius, the captain of my ship, is agog. He has never seen anything like it, nor have the tech priests of Mars, who babble amongst themselves in their horrific lingua technis, their grating binaric cant. None of them can work out what had happened here. The Mandeville point is stable, which is an oddity as well, because there is no star. There are planets and asteroids now hanging in space and moving in unpredictable ways, like discarded gloves. They are random and have no real rhyme or reason anymore. Someone or something turned off the star, and it must have happened recently. It did not go nova or dwarf, but I do not really understand these terms, blathering from the Navis and Martians. When explained, the usual way a star dies is in a huge explosion, then a retraction into another form of smaller star, or even a hole of some form, they tell me. But here, the planets are cold and sterile, of course, because there is no life-giving sun in the skies. Nothing to keep them moving as they once did. Gravity has been removed with the sun. I nod along with a pensive but attentive expression as they reel off this twaddle. Usually, the celestial objects in this system would be absorbed into or utterly exterminated by the explosion of such a dying star. Yet I cannot really even pretend I know what they are going on about. The only important thing is that there is no sun. It died in an unusual way, and that means there is absolutely no threat in this segment of space. And, if I am being honest, this is the only thing of real interest to me. Oh, I am concerned that perhaps the enemy has some form of device that can eat stars. But what the hell am I supposed to do with that? I can only pray to the Emperor that this is another anomaly that is just part of the rich tapestry of life, not yet another threat to our existence. I am the Thaddeus. I absorb it all. But were I not, then surely I would snap under the pressure. I exercise longer, harder than ever before. The more pressure on the mind and soul, the more one needs to burn it off with physical activity. And being trapped on a ship, no matter how large it may be, can put a dampener on any form of physical and mental activity. Yet, we had no choice. To linger over Corivore would have been a potential death sentence. What if those two ships that came with us had some form of contact regime? Anyway, we have done the Corivore, the people of course, a favour and received just payment for it. None of us are puerile or naive enough to believe that this will be over swiftly. We need to attempt to build a reputation out here if we are to survive, let alone to thrive. And the Corivore are quite a popular people in this region. It may not go down well if we are seen as some form of albatross that curses all we are near. So we thanked them and got out of there. If the enemy is tracking us, then why lead them to the Corivore? A nice people for Xenos, I suppose. And I remember the reaction of Tan Irenaid, the Farcier, to the Huntsman of the Soul, the ship previously owned by an Ordo Xenos Inquisitor. The detestation, revulsion he had to the place. I strongly suspect I would not have enjoyed being Ordo Xenos, but the lack of their knowledge and expertise hurts us badly. I can only hope beyond hope that the Huntsman will one day appear on our auspex again. But I cannot dwell on that eventuality. Vermilia was right. I need my head in the game. In any case, we are now in a place of comparative safety while we lick our wounds, work out our next steps, and deal with some unpleasantness. I take a hearty tug from my flask and pocket it, then listen at the door. I hear Vermilia sounding off at her understudy, Castro, in her usual hectoring tone. "It's time you put into practice what you have been taught," she chides. "Interrogation takes many forms, many ways. You cannot always use intimidation or torture. The latter rarely yields dependable results. The former is too subjective." He retorts peevishly, "All well and good, master, but who am I to practice these skills upon exactly?" "Barobiel." He sucks in air through his teeth. "You want me to interrogate an Astartes, but he's not even out of the apothecary yet. Which means he won't attempt to crush your head and escape. Perfect timing. You have him at as much of a disadvantage as is possible for a Primaris Space Marine." He responds slowly. "By your order, I shall do this. What in particular do you wish to gain from him? You could just ask him. It's Barobiel." She coldly responds, "Never question me again, Castro. Not in private, and never in company." "Company?" he shoots back. And that is my cue. The door slides open, and I take 2 paces within, permitting the door to close behind me before I speak. "I will cover that, young Castro." He scowls as he retorts, "Of course, my Lord Inquisitor Thaddeus." I flutter my eyebrows and beam at him, a suitable counter to his childish pinched face. "When we were engaged on Corivore, before the enemy hit us, Barobiel mentioned a name. Legio something. He knows what they were. We need you to find out why and how he knows things that none of the rest of us do. Tad odd for a Marine to be so knowledgeable. Don't you agree, young lad?" He practically winces at my diminishing descriptive language. He bites his tongue and nods, still glaring at me. Vermilia punctuates the situation. "As Thaddeus states, there is something going on with Barobiel, something far from right. It's time we found out what it is. This is your first test, pupil. You will execute it as if you were an Inquisitor. Act in my name, and you act for the Emperor. Oh, and do be a treasure and make sure that Barobiel doesn't twig on that you are indeed interrogating him." Castro nods again, then to Vermilia. "I understand," he states deadpan. But we better hope he doesn't. We are ploughing through the Sea of Souls at the fastest clip we can manage, but still, it will take multiple days to reach our first destination. I find it difficult sometimes to look upon it. I avoid thoroughfares on walkways that have viewing points to the outside of the ship. The Geller fields create a bubble of protection around our vessel as it skims through the immaterium, yet I always need to gird myself, suppress the mild panic that can arise when I view it unprepared. The tiniest, flimsiest egg of energies hold back the Sea of Souls. For many who know of the denizens of the warp, this can be stressful. I, on the other hand, have witnessed the very worst that dwells therein. I can assure you I am no coward, but in this case, above all others, ignorance is indeed bliss. I juxtapose these negative thoughts with visions and activities that are both useful and buoying. I remember the Astronomicon, its brilliance so dazzling, yet it never hurt my eyes to look directly at it. I repeat my mental controls around and around, and I think of her. My faith is strong, but this is my best defense, my most cherished moment. When I heard her voice, when all was lost, when I saw her face, after coming back from the dead, being brought home by her to the safety of her presence. Ursula. When I think of her, my mind tricks me. I smell the meadows of my home world, the sweetness of the cut grass, the calming caress of the gentle wind on my face, the heat from our sun. Calmness. Strange that I never had this with Santara, even though she would recognize so much of my memories, would be able to share in reminiscence. Yet it is Ursula that elicits a lightness inside me that makes even these memories of home not just tolerable, but a blessing. Of course, it is all gone, destroyed by the enemy, but still, within me, it lives on. I smile broadly to myself, then have to move out of the way of a servitor, and am brought back to reality with a thump. The smells of pastille and stale recycled air assail my mind, mixed in with the stench of urine and feces that surround the servitor like a miasma. I wish the menials would at least hose them down occasionally. But here, within a ship, water is the most precious resource of all. My feet take me there, to her door. She knows I am here. She can feel me as much as I can her. Strange indeed, as she is a telekinetic, whereas I am a telepath. Yet in some strange yet glorious way, our experiences, our connection has grown to the level where she can now access some of my skills, and I hers. And all of this makes it even worse. The burning fires that course through my vein when I am not controlling myself. I would never harm a hair on her head. I want to wrap her in a shroud and protect her from everything the universe has to throw at us. But sometimes I fear being in the same room with her alone. I could just reach out my hand, clasp her, draw her into my arms, then plant kisses on her face, her lips, until the universe went cold. I dare not go further in that thought. The fires rise, my palms become clammy, my breathing quickens. I know everything there is to know about emotions, reactions, the body and drives that move humans. I know it all, but experiencing it is so different, almost overwhelming. Yet, that is beneath us. We want to do this right. We eat a fine meal containing my favorite thing. The Heart of Fire was so stricken with relief at my return, so impressed by my actions while dealing with the Dark Ones. Well, He stated I had shown my worth, especially as I had also held off both he and the solitaire at the same time. Used the runes of power channeled through the imagery of my own people, the Holy Imperial Tarot. So, he removed my gaze, the prohibition from consuming meat. I dramatically wipe my mouth in satisfaction as I beam at the perfect chef, Ursula. I cannot help myself. It rolls off my tongue without me ever knowing what was coming out. But I stand by it nonetheless. Nowhere does it state in any of our order's dictates that an Inquisitor cannot have some small happiness. I would ask for your hand. She is not even mildly shocked. She smiles and simply states, "Our tradition is simple." I nod and retort, "Ours also." She responds, "It requires you to ask for me." Aye, ours is similar. But whom? My father. I cannot help but look crestfallen. A bit far away, mayhap? She giggles and responds, "No, he is gone." I am confused. Then, "Oh, him," says I. "Yes, him. He is the head of the family." I fidget a bit, looking away. Her bell-like laugh washes over me, but it is not derisive, just playful. "You face the Lords of Darkness, but you are worried about brooking this subject?" I shrug. "Yeah, I know, but it's him. He's only a man, Tarquinus." No, he is not." She smiles again, reassuringly, but with a twinkle in her eye. "He'll be pretty happy to see you." I snort. "So you think he'll be vulnerable?" "We're better than that." "Anyway, I have to ask someone else myself." Ursula's eyebrows raise comically. "My current master." She tilts her head sideways quizzically, then laughs again and says, "Oh, don't you worry about that. He knows how we feel about each other." "Irrelevant. We do this right. I will ask him first." We kiss, nothing more, but it is like bobbing in the waters of a warm spring. Perfection. I cannot help myself. I go to take things just a tiny step further, and then unceremoniously find myself lifted into the air and floated towards and then through the open door. I do not fight it. I chortle roguishly. She dumps me on the floor as the door shuts. I laugh, even though I have a strong suspicion I just bruised my coccyx on contact with the deck, and the chortle becomes a long wince. Just as I did with Tarquinus, Vermilia and I watch Castro through internal vid feeds, as he sits with the Primaris Marine prodding and side-swiping at Barobiel. We cannot hear it all, but we note the body language, the background tone of the discussion. Barobiel seems open, but is most definitely holding something back. Castro is not even close to gaining any answers, but his stint is cut short by an apothecary who unceremoniously kicks him out so Barobiel can have some rest. Even for an Astartes, his wounds were grievous, nearly as bad as Barbon's. We then hear his mild report, where he explains he must build more bridges before going for the kill, and we agree, of course. Now we have many hours before he can return to the trial, and Vermilia and I head to the one place we have been aching to go. He promised it would be the next morning, but he has not been seen for many days now. His time is up. We go to see Saulot. Vermilia and I do not have to wait long, as Sister Lucrezia opens the door, ushering us into Saulot's chambers, come office, and then departs. And there he is, sat ready for us, wearing light white robes, many candles on every surface. These aren't easily gained. He seems to be burning through his reserves, or is accustomed to a very high standard of existence. The room chokes with the fumes from a censer in the middle of the table. The thick, cloying air is lit by the shimmering, flickering candles, like a dawn or dusk. It feels light, but hidden, a sanctum away from reality. Saulot is haggard, but recovering. He does not shake now, looks placid and centered. Vermilia begins proceedings. "We hope you are well, Saulot, but we need your report." Saulot nods steadily and looks to us both, then responds. "You are correct, Vermilia. I have been trying to find the words to convey what I experienced. Yet, even after all this time, I cannot. Not with the impact it deserves. I will shield you from the worst of it. Their minds are so different. They do not think as we do. But you must see." We all know what he is suggesting. A direct mental link. But I am prepared. "I know how taxing that is for you, old friend. So, I have taken the liberty to bring something to ease the situation." I take out a large pouch and rummage until I pull out a disc of simple metal. It reflects the light from its polished surface. Vermilia has to stifle a smirk, and Saulot only blinks fast the once, then smiles at me. "I just think at it." I place it on the table between us, amidst the candles, and then nod. "Yep, concentration is all that is required for one such as you." "Prepare yourselves," he states. I close my eyes for a moment and center myself further. Protecting myself from emotion, judgment, I become a sponge ready to absorb every moment, every detail. And I will not lie. I wish I had not. Wish I did not understand so much more than other men and women. For now, I cannot forget that which I then witness. Ever. Vermilia is steely-eyed as all three of us gaze into the images drawn from Saulot's mind. He attempted to keep it chronological, so much is apparent. We all fall into the images, as if we were there, experiencing them every bit as much as Saulot. It begins with a feeling. A creeping cold across the flesh, a rising of the hackles, a pricking of the skin, a deep yearning, a chasm that cannot be filled. Utter emptiness. Darkness unremitting, not only a lack of light, but a darkness in every intention, urge, wish, and want. We look through the eyes of a monster. It sees differently to us. It feels its way as much as perceiving it. The visions are blurred and bubbled. It only takes notice of people, beings, not things. It can see objects in a shadowy way, as if they are made of mist, barely tangible. But sentient beings shine like stars in its eyes, or at the very least, their heat is seen, their smells absorbed and catalogued, their heartbeat heard, their habits remembered. This thing sees the soul and heart's blood, and a gnawing hunger rises within it. Images merge, time passes. The thing stalks through a world, consuming all it comes across. For periods, the sight will shatter into 1,000 eyes, all from below, as if the monster scattered its perception. There are others like it, They hoard together and flow towards cities, great foundries filled with bright and dripping souls who toil for them all day and night. Enslaved, their souls burn low, with every thought, emotion, action dictated by their overlords, the monster and its ilk. It does not think in coherent words nor images, but intents and urges. Yet it can understand complex messages, understand the actions of others. It is highly intelligent, but of a different order of existence. It is. A ship lands. Inside it creeps with many of their kind. The slaves are brought to attend the menial tasks, the dangerous trials. They are entertainment, sustenance, and relief. Their plight is terror from cradle to grave, making and clearing. They do not even resist when chosen as plaything or meal. They scream and beg, but do not resist. Obviously, that has been bred out of them. The tapestry unfolds further. Visions of battles in the darkness of the void on various planets. There are other things as well. They lead. When the monster arrives on a planet, its defenses are already broken, cities destroyed, its soldiery mostly slaughtered. Resistance is rare and ragged, and met with unspeakable cruelty. The vision changes again to a storm-riven world with colossal blast marks and craters all across its surface. It has clear images of what can only be towers of limbs and heads and torsos. Nothing connected to another part of the whole. With its ghostly vision, the details are missing, thankfully. Yet it is unmistakable. These are pillars of dead and desecrated, Astartes parts. But I cannot make out or recognize the markings. They are old. Eventually, we witness war. Perception shattered into 1,000 perspectives. It burrows through darkness. It breaks the surface of the darkness. And there is another world. The 1,000 eyes converge quickly, merging into one point of view again. A battlefield. Burning wrecks of ancient imperial vehicles litter the landscape. Bolter fire resounds across its surface from nearly every direction. The thing sees packs of souls, heat signatures gathered into what are clearly squads. It charges one of the packs. It moves amongst them before they really know it is there, striking from behind. It picks up one marine by its head and crushes the helm until it pops and blood geysers out. Another marine is slain as it sweeps its arm across the body and crushes it, like its arm melted around the marine and then solidified and constricted. It is shot at many times, but none of the bolts strike true, each just exploding out fragments of the monster, yet never taking anything vital, if it has anything even nearing that description. The visions repeat. It fought against marines, others that none could recognize, like guard, but heavily armored, and automata as well. Over several more images, it clearly shows a defeat, its own ships and those of its allies being hunted down and exterminated by imperial vessels. It took flight with many of its kind, moving through the warp away from the Imperium, away from the Marines and their deadly lords. The images are strange. Did they slay one? But there were always more humans, and so they ran. Eventually, inexorably, the visions come to Corivore, the landing of the ship, the burrowing down into the earth, the corralling of the remaining slaves, forcing them to carve a citadel out of the toughened rock underground, away from the sun. Time was almost impossible to tell. So many images flew past, but brief, possibly thanks to Saulot. The things we saw. Terrible things. Massed sacrifices for nothing but sport. the blood of thousands running down channels to fountains in the centre of their streets, random cults that began for no reason, often a segment of Corivore ordered to butcher their own, the first they came upon, then continuing until ordered to stop, which could be days away. Massed tortures, displays of flaying and feasts of Corivore, where the enslaved would watch on and bring their brutalized families to the dinner tables of their dark masters. And this went on for centuries at the very least. We all wanted to look away. I know I did. Yet, out of respect, because of who we were, we held the vision and absorbed it all. Eventually, one dark night in the Undercity, a single Corivore stood up and said, "No." He was cut down immediately, but so many had seen. Within a month, there were attacks on masters across the city. When alone, they would be assaulted. For a time this went on, for the Corivore could not harm the Dark Masters. They were trying to beat them with sticks, pull them apart, or even pierce them with knives. But nothing the Corivore could do would harm the Dark Masters. And their retribution was disgusting. A level of denigration and destruction that was unthinkable, inexplicable. Eventually, the Corivore learnt to use fire. If the entire master could be doused in fire and kept above the ground, then they would die. Eventually, thousands of Corivore Xenos rose up, and the battle lasted a full year, possibly longer. One battle that seemed like it would never end. Once teeming streets and plateaus were now scattered with bones and offal, deserted. The Corivore were slain in their millions. It nearly ended both races. But they killed the few masters, forcing them to withdraw into the one temple, which was then overrun. All of the masters were slain, but this one. He got to his sarcophagus and switched on a system that could only have been some sort of stasis vault, for nothing the Corivore could do would open it. And thus, it slept through the ages, until finally, it was awoken. Its consciousness lit up, and it saw a hand above its body, but it had no weapon within it. The hand was connected to a body, a human. The thing, the monster, could not make out the face of the human, but could see its twisted soul. And it took the proffered hand. The monster clasped the hand and was helped out of the sarcophagus. In the instant of contact, the monster witnessed the soul of its visitor, and it shuddered, fearful but respectful of another entity of pure will, pure intent, bottomless hunger, endless cruelty. And it, the monster, it knelt to the enemy. The vision ends. It snaps off so quickly, the familiar shakes her head hard and shudders. Saulot looks mournful for a moment. And me, the strangeness, otherness, darkness. I'm glad it is over. Wished I had never experienced it. A timeline in an instant. A nightmare of millennia condensed into minutes. I felt drained. I felt dirty. Like I would never be clean again. As if I had been tainted by that memory of its appetites and actions. Saulot nodded sagely, recognizing another who had survived the journey, even though he had travelled it before, without warning nor protection. No wonder he had been so effective. Familiar finally breathed. That thing agreed to be his henchman. Gentlemen, we are out of our league. He has a vampire, this thing, a homunculus of the Dark City, a greater demon of Slaanesh, an empire, an army, and a fleet. Saulot rises, going for liquor and glasses again. He sighs. He pours the drinks out. I get a healthy portion dumped into my receptacle. Did you think this would be easy? Did I not warn you of the road? Did you think I would waste my life on a non-entity, a common warlock? Vermilia responds before I can. Saulot, are you saying you knew or even suspected any of this before we set out? I watched them both like a hawk. How could I know? How could I know? But it changes nothing. We came out here to make war, to hunt down, then end him. We have the weapon. We have our collected forces, knowledge, power, wisdom, will, and the other prongs. We cannot fail. Vermilia points her face towards me, while still giving side-eye to wee Saulot. What do you say, Thaddeus? This is the first glimpse we have had without him force-feeding it to us. He could truly be the most evil thing in the galaxy. A true son of the Dark Gods. If this terror really is worse than a Dark Lord of Corivore, or a greater demon of the Prince of Pleasure, can we afford to turn tail and leave him to his machinations? Can we afford to give him more time to grow even stronger? Vermilia sits back. Saulot nods in agreement. We continue to talk for multiple hours, but effectively, it goes nowhere. And all I can think is, no matter what I may have just said, we shouldn't be out here. Another nail in the coffin. It's all adding up now. When do I agree with Vermilia? When do I pull the plug? When do I strike? With wide eyes and beaming grin, I stand before my mentor, and I await his response. Tan Irinade, the Eldar Farcier, looks down his now sneering long nose and spits his response. No. Over my dead corpse. My face drops, and my hands shoot out at either side of me in exasperation. What? He now towers over me. You heard me, pupil. I said no. What? I repeat. The Farcier continues his sneer. You will not go all moon-eyed now. You are previously engaged to me, boy. I blurt out. I just held off you and Ilhavnarian. His nostrils flare. Held us off. Do you think either of us were really going for the kill in earnest? Even so, I am no match for the enemy. You certainly are not. You have to fulfill your oaths to me. Then, when I have finished, you can do whatever you wish, with whom you wish. But until either you or I pass, you are to ignore all other concerns. We do not have much time, Tarquinus. I frumpily cross my arms. You are putting a lot of stock in threats. His eyes flare again. He really is intimidating. It was not a threat, boy. It was a promise, I assure you. But young Monkey has hungers. As a reward for your travails, I have already met you halfway. As agreed, you can consume flesh again. Not exactly the sort. Do not finish that statement, pupil. Being crass will lead to punishment. You have decades of work to perform, and we have but scant days to do them in. If it is meant to be, then it will happen, but not while I live. And that was most definitely the end of that. Castro sits with hands clasped together on the table between us. Vermilia pins him with her cold stare. So what did you find out? Castro nods and begins. He does not move a muscle as he reports. Barobiel is not your standard space marine, even for a Primaris. It seems he is a man out of time. He was one of a huge cohort recruited on Terra by a Magos called Belisarius Call. His father was to be an iterator, but he suffered from transhuman dread, and so was rejected. Then, this father lived through the siege of Terra, and it twisted him. Though he rose through the ranks of the Administratum at that time, he never quite removed the stain to his honour from his outburst before a Primarch. He was cured of his transhuman dread by the events of the siege, but then there was no crusade to be an iterator for, and the Imperium was in ruins. The unhinged idiot took it out on his own flesh and blood. Though Barobiel attempts to massage the details, he was terribly mistreated. The father lived vicariously through his son. The boy would become the man who became Barobiel. He chivied and chided him, drilled and conditioned the poor youth. He was forced before every legion, he said. I presume he means chapter. But none would take him. Finally, his father heard of the secret recruiting from this arch-magos, and he was inducted into the Primaris, then placed in a stasis field. When the Primarch Guilliman returned, the Primaris were activated by this magos. I chip in. Have we forgotten your orders? He scowls at me, but only slightly. No, my Lord Inquisitor. I was getting to it. The father is explained as it gives context. He was a historiator, wrote a paper on something called the Legio Catiges. They were a prototype of Marines that helped the Emperor claim Terra. They were called the Thunder Warriors. What happened to them? In the very last battle of the Unification Wars, the last of the Thunder Warriors attacked the final holdout of the rebels. Lamentably, almost poetically, they were slain to a man, their last breaths bringing unification to Terra, or so the propaganda states. And Barobiel believes that the description of these Thunder Warriors is exactly what we fought on Corivore. Why has he never mentioned any of this before? Castro responds. He said that it was not a secret per se, but many of his kind do not volunteer the information. He said that it can be heartbreaking, answering questions about how things were back then, compared to now, I presume. He was rather sad about it all. I believe him. Vermilia looks to me. I slap my hands on my thighs and rise to my feet. Well, that seems to match up quite nicely. Castro seems to relax a little, and then also gets up to stand. I offer him my hand, and he shakes it. I beam at him as I let go of his hand, then slap him on the shoulder with pride. Well done, Alfarius. Now do be a dear and pass me some drink, eh? Castro immediately turns and takes a pace towards a bottle of Amasec on the sideboard beside the door. He then stops mid-stride, and slowly his shoulders lower as he lets out a long sigh. He turns slowly and raises his hands. He looks at what he knows will be there. And he is right, of course, as a vision of my bolt pistol pointing between his ears swims into his vision. And I say the one word. Gotcha. Showtime. Collected on our bridge, we witness our ship coming out of the warp. We're instantly hit by multiple Auspex arrays, and our klaxons go mad. A Vox transmission screams into existence and is piped over the bridge. To rogue vessel, identify yourself. You are unlawfully encroaching on Omega Kingdom space. If you value your lives, you will immediately power down your drives and prepare to be boarded. Multiple ships now appear on our own displays. in convoy arrangement heading directly towards us, the Mandeville point. Some are rising from the convoy to approach us. In the flicker of an eye, both I and the Farcier send out our consciousnesses into the void. We do not see so much as feel our way towards the ships, and I almost pull back in shock. Inside at least one of these vessels are people, souls crying out to be saved, shackled in darkness, consumed by grief. Their existence is torture, their hope all but gone. And they feel me, sense me, and out come 100 psychic wails all directed towards me. They are human. They are in pain. These are my people. I bring back my consciousness. I am resolved. Captain Decimus looks down at me and barks. 8 ships, 5 of which seem to be unarmed haulers, sizable but slow. 3 vessels that equate to escorts of the Navis Imperialis. We do not know their capabilities, Inquisitor Tarquinus. I acknowledge him and retort. Decimus, can the huntsman fight this? He looks down at me with steely conviction. She is called the Huntsman of the Soul. She is an inquisitorial vessel. We can take on ships a class up from us in tonnage, perhaps a ship of the line, at a push, but not for long. She isn't a tradition ship. She simply wouldn't last against Inquisitor Thaddeus' vessel, let alone Inquisitor Vermilia's or the kin monster. I only state this for comparison, my lord. But she can fight? I state. He furrows his brows as he responds, barely concealing his deep offence at the question. Of course, my lord Inquisitor. She is an imperial vessel. She can and will fight. Then take us in. Josephus pipes up. 3 against 1. Can we even the odds at all? I look to the Xenos, and all 3 of them incline their heads slightly. Louis gives a whooping laugh as he bounds off of the bridge. Where he's off to, none can tell. The solitaire Ilhavnarian bows to the Farcier and asks in Eldar, Are you familiar with your ship's weapon systems? The Farcier's helm rises into the air and attaches to his head. The shield of war covers his features as he then snaps. Don't be pathetic. I am the heart of fire of a noon. I have won more dogfights than Craftworld Samehan. The solitaire raises, and he bites off. Bold words, Farcier. Farcier now, and for millennia. But once, I was the lightning hawk. I have stopped wars in their tracks, slain scores of dark kin and twisted Astartes' aces. I am death. The solitaire responds. Time to prove it. My pleasure. They both head for the hangar bay. I turn to Josephus. Head down with them, please, Arbiter. If we are to be boarded, it's likely it will come from there. Shore up our defenses. He snaps a salute and follows them. Captain Decimus, how long until we are within range? 1 hour tops before we are within lance and battery ranges. But we have torpedoes. Permission to begin the affray, my lord. I respond. Captain Decimus, conduct this engagement with honor. We do not fire on the haulers. We do not refuse a request for clemency. Other than that, bring the Emperor's wrath down on this scum. He bows and then barks his first orders. We have our mandate, gentlemen and ladies. Raise void shields. Full ahead. Bring us to combat speed. Target their lead ship. Launch torpedoes. It begins. And then a tech priest of Mars disconnects from its station and approaches the captain. It makes some motions and is clearly communicating with him. I take the few paces to get involved. Cutting a long story short, the priest lodges a formal complaint. The divine systems of the God Machine and Omnisire are being befouled by Xenos interventions, it states. Decimus is in shock. Has clearly never dealt with this before. Time to step in. I address the tech priest. The Jacaro is acting on my orders. He knows not what he does. He just does. But he is not under my authority, just my direction. He is an attendant of the Thaddeus. Thus I cannot support any punishment. So, I will pay penance to Mars when this is concluded. But let us win this battle before we agree on anything else. Might be a waste of time, eh? The priest just nods and returns to its station. I cannot tell if it is relieved, seething, or sanguine. Like my mentor, I really don't like tech priests. And of course, I now have my reasons. Things heat up. Our torpedoes fly through the void at them, but we receive no counter-fire. When our torpedoes get closer, one of the three is shot from the skies, but the other two strike, and extensive damage is only barely prevented by their thick armor. But Auspex confirms we have nearly crippled one of their ships, its forward gunnery smashed to pulp by them. Then the enemy drops fighters. A wave of a dozen attack craft dart towards us. They are met by one ship of our own. The Eldar ship is a shuttle in name only. It banks and twists faster than anything in the human fleet, can outpace near anything in the galaxy, and it is armed with bright lances. Not a single fighter survives its third pass. It darts towards enemy capital ships. I chortle. Would there be anything left to battle? Then I stop, as our ship's shields are assailed by all three of them unloading at extreme range. But still, they are hitting. Decimus is surprised by this, but not flapped. The ensigns are far more forthcoming. They are in awe. Those strikes should have stripped away at least one void shield array, but they did not. Louis, I presume. Then I feel a small kick in my shin, and I look down to Ursula, who is frowning at me. I was enjoying myself a bit too much. I nod and extend my hand to her. She grasps it, and we link. I take charge, feeding from her power, allowing her soul to enhance my own, not just in strength and power, but in subtlety and specificity. Ursula has only a fraction of my potential, but she has so much experience, has been trained from youth, and she grounds me while making me soar. We reach into the void between our ships, and our minds flow across the largest enemy vessel, the one tucked behind the lead. There. But we do not find the bright and dripping soul of a navigator. Not one. We do find the captain. His mind is like a steel trap, disciplined, ordered, at this range, unassailable. So, with Ursula directing me, like a wind, we move through the ship, finding weaker wills, more open minds. We have to avoid certain areas where our kind are being kept, where they call to us, but from a distance, as if they are not awake, not fully conscious. So it is their souls, not their minds, that scream to us. I was not prepared for this, but Ursula centers me, guides me, takes me on. We find their armed guards and voidsmen itching for a fight, and we nudge them here, a vision there, and unleash pandemonium on the enemy bridge and engineering sections as they go footsie, unloading their weapons into their officers. While all of this is going on, the Eldar shuttle easily evades and weaves around the third ship, pinpoint firepower from its advanced weaponry burning out the ship's eyes by taking out the Auspex arrays, then hammering into its engine section. The death of 1,000 cuts, but each one so precise, so prescient, the Farcier either knew or tore the information from the enemy while flying, so that he dissects the escort, and it turns into a small star as its engines explode. For an instant I shield my eyes, praying to the Emperor that they are not within the blast radius, but, of course, they are not. The lead enemy ship is struck by another volley of our torpedoes. It banks off as it becomes a burning hulk. They certainly are not combat vessels, it seems, or perhaps the standards are just very low around these parts. In any case, we are victorious. Well, nearly. Only the command ship remains, but its fire at us is sporadic and undisciplined, their psychically instigated civil war ravaging their capacity to engage. Ursula and I joined Josephus in the hangar bay and boarded the Eldar ship. Now that experience I will wax lyrical about at another time. For now, we head towards the last enemy combatant ship. The huntsman now arcing away from it to prevent any damage. Even though its shields now seem immune, it's best not to test these things. Who knows what the orange furball has done and how long it will last. Speaking of which, Louis arrives and bounds up the closing ramp, glaring at us as he does so. He obviously does not wish to miss the boarding action, as he is kitted out in his own form of power armor. He blows a raspberry at me, of course, but I just chortle, then direct my attention to the two Eldar in the cockpit. Let's go introduce ourselves to the enemy, eh? Take us over to that last capital ship. They both agree, and we swoop through the void towards it. Sat on the ground, Castro is clutching his face and wiping blood from his shattered nose. I may have nutted him. It seemed appropriate at the time. Vermilia steps forward and languidly says, "Disappointing, but only a few years wasted. Also, exciting. We have ourselves an Altharius." He looks up at us both and dolefully queries, "What gave me away?" "You never once spoke to Barobil of Old Terror, the Emperor, or the Primarch his father saw, met in the flesh. Because you didn't care. A young lad like you may be irreverent, but an Inquisitor that isn't inquisitive? You had a greater mission, or you'd seen it all before. Either way, you're a rat." All pretense gone, he glares at us both. "I'm not your enemy. We want him dead as much as you do. More. We have our reasons. Take me with you, and I could be of great service. Take me out, and they'll just send replacements. They will arrive everywhere. Your paranoia will consume you. We can call a truce, a temporary one. We are the Alpha Legion, not demons from the warp. You do not know us. For once, our purposes align. We know things. And when concluded, when this is all done, instead of Castro dying, he'll return to his natural state, his programming completed. We will leave him. He'll remember nothing, so you'll have to start again from scratch. But we will be done with him, and you. We know things." Vermilia takes one step towards him and bends down so her face is at the same level as Castro's. She stares into his eyes as she speaks, more softly and warmly than I have ever heard before. "If you hear me in there, Castro, though it seems we have never truly met, I am sorry. I truly am." Castro's eyes widen as he blurts out again, "We know things!" And she ends it. "I have no doubt that you do. But we cannot take the risk." And then things instantly become even more complicated as Pius arrives. To be continued.